There is so much to applaud him for about, as everyone has said, how he lived his truth, how he lived his faith, how he put that faith.
I'm going to be honest with you. We both know you're fucked.
Excuse me?
Your mom writes on the walls with her own shit.
Miss, whatever you're painting there, you might want to stop now.
Great changes are coming to Dead World, my son. Waves of maggots over oceans of rot.
There is so much to applaud him for about, as everyone has said, how he lived his truth, how he lived his faith, how he put that faith into action.
You'll see it, David. You'll see it with your own eyes. Do you understand?
Miss?
There is so much to applaud him for about, as everyone has said, how he lived his...
No. No. No, 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 no. This is not my problem. Bollocks.
There is so much to applaud him for about, as everyone has said, how he lived his truth, how he lived his faith, how he put that faith into action.
Oh my God. What happened to your eyes?
Where we're going, we won't need eyes to see.
What are you talking about?
A dimension of pure chaos.
Pure evil. And now, it is time to go back.
I know. To hell.
You know nothing. Hell is only a word. The reality is much, much worse. Let me show you.
Black eyes are a clear symptom of demonic possession by reptilians. The eyes are the windows of the soul. The possessed act as a portal to the lower, dark dimension where their evil demonic reptilian puppet masters reside. Kamala Harris' pitch black eyes, demented shark grin, and psychotic hyena laughter are clear signs of reptilian possession. Full possession by a reptilian demon is not something that happens by accident or for minor reasons. The usual sins of a politician, such as notorious lying, bribery, and other forms of habitual corruption, are not enough on their own to achieve this. It takes deeply depraved satanic practices, such as regular drinking of human blood, pedophilic rape, torture of children, and ritual satanic sacrifice of children. This only happens to devil worshippers who engage in satanic practices. She blinks 100 times a minute to control her eyes and prevent them from going pitch black all the time.
Does it make any sense to say that state and local governments should not have the support they need when they're supplying the workers who are on the front lines, taking care of the American people?
Kamala Harris is a mass murderer and is conspiring to start World War III. She is a mass murderer because Biden and Harris have deliberately opened the borders, following the plan of the North American Union to merge the U.S. with Canada and Mexico, dismantling the U.S. in the process through ethnic and cultural invasion, an inevitable increase in conflict and crime, in addition to dismantling and demotivating the police and passing laws that decriminalize crime. The resulting thefts, robberies, rapes, assaults, and murders are not a coincidence, not an inevitable law of nature. They are all preventable. They are the direct result of political action. Biden's and Harris' willful political actions. That countries release their prison and insane asylum inmates, including murderers, and send them to the U.S. and other Western countries is not an accident, not an organic development, but a coordinated political action organized from above. They do this with full intent and full knowledge of the consequences. This is conspiracy for murder in the first degree, and on a large scale, this is mass murder. They are mass murderers, but they get away with it because their murders are disguised by cloaking concepts. They are part of the plan. They are politicians. And hide their true intentions and actions behind artificially constructed narratives of deception and manipulative, rationalizing lawyer gibberish.
You know what I noticed? Nobody panics when things go according to plan. Even if the plan is horrifying. If tomorrow I tell the press that, like, a gangbanger will get shot, or a truckload of soldiers will be blowing up, nobody panics. Because it's all part of the plan. But when I say that one little old mare will die, well, then everyone loses their minds.
If they weren't part of the plan, if the Earth wasn't an open, insane asylum, if there was real accountability, and if Biden and Harris took full responsibility, they would be in prison for at least life or get the death penalty. They are 10,000 times what Ted Bundy was. But Ted Bundy was a serial killer monster while Joe and Kamala are merely politicians because the latter are part of the plan. That's not a simplification. That's just an objective and accurate description of insanity. Mass insanity. Mass hypnosis. People are in a state of hypnosis orchestrated by the complicit media machine.
Our impulses are being redirected. We are living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep.
Oh, goddamn hacker, that second damn night that asshole's cut in.
The movement was begun 8 months ago by a small group of scientists who discovered, quite by accident, these signals being sent through...
Things giving me a headache. Yeah, tell me about it. Must took the hackers months to figure out how to do this.
The poor and the underclass are growing. Racial justice and human rights are non-existent. They have created a repressive society, and we are their unwitting accomplices. Their intention to rule rests with the annihilation of consciousness. We have been lulled into a trance. They have made us indifferent to ourselves, to others. We are focused only on our own gain. Please understand, they are safe as long as they are not discovered. That is their primary method of survival. Keep us asleep, keep us selfish, keep us sedated.
That Kamala Harris is trying to bring about World War III is a simple fact proven by her own statements, political promises, and logical projections into the future. Harris promises to provide Ukraine with all the weapons it needs to win. This is impossible because Ukraine has neither the soldiers nor the resources to win a long-term war of attrition against Russia. It is already forcibly recruiting young and old men on the streets because it has no soldiers left. They have killed a whole generation of men. This means that NATO will inevitably have to send troops, which will automatically lead to a third world war and millions of deaths. Further arming Ukraine and sending soldiers will lead to a full-blown conflict between NATO and Russia, which will then escalate into a nuclear war because Russia cannot win a conventional war against NATO. Putin has already stated that NATO allowing Ukraine to use NATO weapons, experts, and satellite systems to attack targets on the Russian mainland will eventually force Russia to declare war on NATO. Russia is not the aggressor. This is absurd NATO propaganda. NATO staged a coup in Ukraine in 2014 to install a puppet government. It has funded political extremist groups and militias such as the Azov Battalion. It has staged ethnic cleansing of Russians in the border regions through these proxy forces, killing 15,000 civilians and secretly turning Ukraine into a military beachhead, which inevitably will lead to an attack on Russia. They rejected all diplomatic attempts by Russia to resolve this conflict peacefully and continue to arm Ukraine. Finally, they declared that they would arm Ukraine with nuclear weapons, forcing Russia to launch a preemptive attack. And now the real aggressor is deceitfully playing the victim and calling Russia the aggressor. This is satanic inversion. It is projecting onto others what they themselves are doing and what they are to blame for, as the EU and us governments are largely infiltrated by satanic forces. Reptilian Harris is part of the satanic network. She will do anything to escalate this conflict into a global war. The satanic reptilian media machine repeats over and over again, Putin will not respond, he will not do anything, he will not retaliate, he will not declare war, he will not use nuclear weapons. They appease the masses with propaganda while the satanic reptilian war machine continues to escalate the conflict until Russia will eventually be forced to declare war. This will lead to a third world war involving Russia, Iran, and China. One thing that is known throughout the world over the centuries about shape-shifting, blood-sucking vampires is that they must ask permission. They must be voluntarily invited to step over the threshold of a house. This is a metaphysical rule. The so-called BEC, the black-eyed children, but also adults, are known for asking the question that vampires are known for. They ask, can we come in? A variation of, can we step over the threshold of your house? Vampire entities ask this question because they are trying to gain metaphysical permission, a person's free will, to do what? Obviously to cause them serious harm. There are not many known incidents where the black-eyed vampire creatures are invited into the home or car, mostly because the people who meet them at their door are filled with pure fear and absolute terror emanating from these black-eyed creatures. But one of the cases where a BEC was invited in shows why this is so. Because once they have been invited in, it brings pure misfortune in the form of illness and ultimately death to the person who invited them in.
It also slightly mimics part of the vampire legend where you have to allow the vampire to come in.
Yeah, before they can cross the threshold, exactly. Because why aren't they just coming in? Like, it's almost like they have to have your permission to do that.
That's part of one of the old vampire legends is you have to give the vampire permission to enter your dwelling. And whether it's a car or a house, it seems to be that's what they need from these people before they can enter their lives and cause this havoc. I mean, not all vampires go after blood. There's some legends that vampires go after your life force in another way. Maybe this is some kind of vampire that takes people's potential of happiness away from them. I mean, and giving them misery in return.
A woman who had her 10-year-old son with her in her vehicle stopped at a convenience store. She ran inside by herself and left her child outside. And when she came back out, she jumped in the car, threw her milk and bread on the seat, and started the engine. Autopilot, just looking in the rear view mirror and staring back at her was a young boy with solid black eyes. And she had instant fear, instant terror reaction. She jumped out of the car, yanked her son out, and went back inside. And of course, the black-eyed child ended up vanishing. As the story unfolded, she learned that her son had in fact invited this child in. Now, he was just seeing a potential playmate. He didn't think there was any harm in this. So, you can't really blame the child. However, the circumstances that unfolded after that encounter were pretty sad. The husband ended up driving the vehicle home. He came to meet his wife at the store. She was just too shaken up to even drive her own car. So he took her vehicle, went to drive home, and was in an accident and totaled the vehicle. The young boy who had direct contact with this black-eyed child became very ill. In fact, the doctors could not determine what was wrong with this little boy because his symptoms constantly changed. They thought he had the flu. They thought he had a stomach virus. He suddenly broke out. They thought he had the measles. They thought he had appendicitis. And this went on for weeks. They couldn't treat him because they couldn't diagnose him. And the mother firmly believes that what they encountered was something demonic.
Infinite disease and infinite diversity, constantly changing, rearranging, granted by Nurgle the Plague Lord, the master of pestilence, one of the 4 chaos gods of the Dark Realm, the Immaterium. In particular, the emotion of despair in mortals empowers the Plague God more than any other. Amongst its followers are those who wish to spread decay and corruption. Kamala Harris is Kala Harris, a high priestess of chaos and emissary of despair, of poverty, disease, and death.
It took just a lot of attention, a lot of time, and some clergy praying over the boy and family members attending to him, but he eventually recovered.
So are these things kind of like a harbinger of something bad? I mean, do other people report, bad things happening after these experiences?
Absolutely. That's one of the things that stands out in the reports is that a good portion of these encounters, it appears that the black-eyed child is almost an omen, and that immediately after the encounter, negative things tend to happen. Your family members will pass away. People have lost their jobs, or their relationships have suddenly ended. So very strange things accompany these children.
The clue is also in her name. Kamala Harris contains the word Kalahari, the name of the largest desert on Earth. Kalahari is derived from the Swana word Kegala, which means the great thirst, or from Kegalgadi, which means waterless place. Hell is also said to be a waterless place. Not a single drop of water in hell. There is a strange debate about how to pronounce her name correctly. Namely, Kamala has recently insisted that her name not be pronounced Kam-Al-Ah, as in camera, as she was called for decades, but Kam-Al-Ah, as in come. This is an additional reference to the hidden Kalahari in her name, which is pronounced Kalahari as in come. This is closer to the pronunciation of her name, which she has recently insisted on. Darksiders intentionally give clues in the form of warning signs before moving on to the next step. These cues can take various forms. One example is symbolic clues in their names. This is an indication that you are in danger, similar to the warning colors of poisonous animals or poisonous plants. Any hint given is a request for metaphysical permission to proceed. If such a hint is ignored, it is considered consent to continue. This is basically the extended version of the question, can we come in? It is the same method of the same entities. They are interdimensional vampire demons asking to step over the threshold and be let in. The consequences of letting them in, be it into a house, a car, or high political office, will be dire.